There is a ceasefire. You already know that. Every channel, every feed, every analyst has spent the last 100 days telling you the same story. I'm not going to talk about any of that today. I'm not going to spend the next 10 minutes explaining how fragile this ceasefire actually is and how we have been told a dozen times that they were inches away from a deal. I'm not going to walk you through the fact that Iran launched ballistic missiles at Israel just a few hours ago either, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and break down why this specific strike matters more than every strike that came before it. I'm not going to cover any of that because everyone else already is. What I want to show you instead is the one thing that nobody is putting on screen. By the end of this video, you'll know how they've been lying to you about the true cost of the war and what the world could look like if all that money had been invested somewhere else instead. You'll know everything, and I promise you. This is it. This tiny paragraph. It looks harmless, almost like a footnote, and that is exactly the problem because this paragraph is one of the most misleading things written about the entire war. The United States spent nearly $72 billion on this war. I need you to actually sit with that number for a second because the brain does not process it properly the first time. $72 billion, which works out to roughly $1.2 billion every single day on a conflict that was completely optional. And let me surprise you more. The Pentagon's own estimate had this war costing far less. The real figure came in close to 3 times higher than what their own people projected. So, is that it? Is that the true cost of this war? No. And this is where the deception begins, because that number only counts what the US spent. It does not count what the US broke. It does not count the damage to its own air bases, and it does not count what happened to the Gulf, the countries that had nothing to do with starting this and got buried under it anyway. So let me show you what $72 billion conveniently leaves out. Start with Dubai. Tourism alone is $1 billion pillar of that city's economy. And look at what the war did to it. Hotel bookings collapsed by more than 60% the moment the attacks began. More than 3,000 flights a day got disrupted, with around 80% of them canceled. The estimate on the table is that Dubai could lose between $150 and $180 billion off its annual market. And even with a ceasefire, the projection is that Dubai needs months just to get hotel bookings back to normal. You have to understand what Dubai actually is. It does not run on its own population. The overwhelming majority of the people who power that economy are foreigners, tourists, expats, and capital that can leave the second it stops feeling safe. And we have not even put a dollar figure on the reputational damage because that one does not show up on a spreadsheet for years. Now this chart, that 38% drop you are looking at is not some failed AI penny stock. That is the Dubai real estate market, and it has crashed in double digits since this war started. Wealth that took a decade to build, gone in months. None of that is sitting inside the $72 billion either. Then there is Qatar. One of its largest LNG facilities took a hit, wiping out 12.8 million metric tons of capacity per year, which is roughly 17% of Qatar's total LNG export capacity. Qatar Energy estimates that lost production costs the country around $20 billion a year in sales. This continues even if war ends today. And this is the one that reaches into your wallet directly, because when that much gas comes off the global market, the price of energy does not care which passport you hold. This is True North, one of the more accurate financial AI tools I use day to day. And even it is saying there is effectively no ceiling on how high oil can run while the Strait of Hormuz stays in play. I will drop the link in description. That is another cost landing on every person watching this at the pump and in the grocery bill, and once again, not counted. Now come back to that paragraph, because it was never only the US bleeding money. Israel lost around $11 billion. Iran lost somewhere between $40 and $50 billion, close to 10% of its entire GDP. Add those to the 72, and you are already over $100 billion on paper alone, before we touch a single one of the Gulf losses I just walked you through. And then there is the most damning detail in that whole paragraph, the economics of defense itself. The US has the best air defense in the world, the THAAD and the Patriot. The problem is they cost a fortune to use against a $50,000 Iranian Shahed drone. That asymmetry is the entire game. The US reportedly fired more than 200 THAAD interceptors defending Israel alone. Multiply 200 by 12 million, and you are already past $1 billion just in interceptors, just for Israel, before you count a single Gulf nation. And the bigger problem is not even the money, it is the supply. That stockpile got depleted by roughly half. You cannot manufacture these things fast. So Iran spent thousands per drone and forced the US to burn millions per shot until the shelf started going empty. And keep this in the back of your mind because it matters for the end of this video. We don't even have high-speed rail, and the only developed nation on Earth that still does not guarantee free healthcare to its own citizens. Now, the second half of this story, because so far we have only talked about money the US spent and money the Gulf lost. We have not talked about what the US lost on its own bases. According to the New York Times, and I want to stress that this is the New York Times reporting it, the US has 13 bases across the Gulf that it poured money, infrastructure, capability, and personnel into, and most of those 13 are reported as uninhabitable or destroyed, with Kuwait taking the worst of it. Now, maybe you don't trust an X account, and maybe you don't even trust the New York Times, which is fine. I wouldn't do either. I want crystal clear proof, so let me show you the actual imagery. This is a composite of multiple bases at once. Naval support activity Bahrain to Prince Sultan Al Dhafra. Some lost hangars, some lost radar arrays. Yes, this set was posted by Iran-affiliated media. Hold that, because we are going to verify it in a minute. This is another Kuwait base, and look at the precision. They even took out the small white radar domes. They hit exactly the targets they wanted, and they had clear damage assessment imagery within seconds. This is a Bahrain base. Those radar systems run into the millions of dollars each. And here's the same story coming straight from the BBC. Destroyed fuel storage, damaged hangars, confirmed with Airbus satellite imagery, not Iranian media. You could still say this is all Iranian propaganda, maybe even AI. So independent journalists ran the Iranian-released images against commercially available satellite imagery from Planet, and they matched. The damage was real, and it was verified by a third party, which leaves one enormous question. How does Iran, a country that gets called underdeveloped, suddenly have precision strikes this clean and battle damage confirmation within seconds? That answer is Russia and China. And this is not me speculating. Al Jazeera wrote about the signals war, how electronic warfare and intelligence sharing are eroding decades of US and Israeli dominance in the Gulf. And US intelligence itself indicates China is preparing to deliver new air defense systems to Iran within weeks, even after Beijing claimed it helped broker the ceasefire. Then you have Reuters, citing Ukraine, reporting that Russia is supplying Iran with cyber support and spy imagery to sharpen its attacks. That is where the precision and the real-time confirmation come from. And CNN backs the Russia involvement too. So this is not one shaky source. This is the same picture from multiple directions. Which brings us to the part that should actually concern you. This table only uses 25 billion. And remember, the real number is not 25 billion. It is way above when you add everything. But even at just 25 billion, that same money could have covered Medicaid for over 3 million people for an entire year. It could have given free school lunches to nearly 30 million children for a full school year. It could have housed more than 3 million people through Section 8 for a year, covered childcare for 1.78 million kids, or paid for free community college tuition for 2.86 million adults. And at the 200 billion figure that has been floated for additional war funding, you could give every single child in the United States a free school lunch and still have more than 170 billion left over. Now put it next to the weapons. One 30,000-pound bomb equals 625 people on Medicaid for a year. One Tomahawk missile, 2,600 school lunches, one THAAD interceptor, the same one they fired more than 200 times, equals 1,575 people on Medicaid for a year, or roughly 15,000 children fed for a school year. So the next time someone shows you that clean little 72 billion number and tells you that was the cost of the war, you remember everything it left out. The bill was never 72 billion. That was just the part they were comfortable showing you. I'll see you in the next one.